This is Critical Nonsense, our highbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Aaron talks about media twins.
Woo! Reunited and it feels like podcasts. This is what a Joey sounds like.
Every day I eat some ham and I have some cheese and maybe bees. They make honey. This is what an Aaron sounds like via Amigo Bacon.
I'm back, Aaron.
Yes! We have a Joey. We don't have a Jess. We don't have an executive producer.
We don't have a Jess.
We don't have a Jess. We can't be in the same digital room altogether.
No.
It's not possible. It's not possible.
Take that, grand jury. Take that, federal court of Brooklyn, New York.
I shake my fist at those neoclassical columns because you, sir, have leapt free, and I love it. Well, I guess I'm happy then. I'm hugging the columns. It's good.
Aaron, do we have any housekeeping? Ner.
I mean, look, last year I don't know that we've talked very much. We'll take a quick detour just to acknowledge that we're still we make jokes a lot and we have lightness, and we believe that our role on this podcast is to put some lightness in the world. But I think that it can't go without saying that, damn it would be so nice to go to some precedented times, because it just keeps on remaining unprecedented and jarring and scary. And all I can say is, I can speak on behalf of everybody at the pod and just say, like, this sucks. It's time to move anger and rage to action. It's always the season for change. So let's get rowdy and not let it stop. I don't know. I'm also acknowledging my masculinity. This is not my conversation to start, but I do want to vocalize my support for everything that needs to be done within this space.
Yeah. Suffice to say, we avoid getting political on this show and try to make it about interesting things happening in the world or culture or, weird questions to make everyone's day a little bit lighter. But it's been a tough month while I've been sitting in a grand jury hearing the reports out of the Supreme Court and things like that. Has just been, new ones released today. We're recording this on Wednesday, June 29th, and, more continue to come out. So it's been a tough month in sort of judicial news, but we will continue to keep it light because, we need that too for our commutes. And, if we're joining you in a grocery store, it might be nice just to hear us talk about random cultural ephemera to, give us a smile while we grab the Fruit Loops.
Yes.
So that's our job.
I think
at least with this podcast.
Yes. And I think that might be the house is kept. I think that's the one. And rate, review, subscribe, as crappy and dinty as that is in comparison. Not crappy, just small.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, do you want to sissy that walk?
Let's do it. Oh, yes. BT Dubs, just to run on that one for a minute. All Stars 7. I can't remember what All Stars were on.
Sissy That Walk is a RuPaul song for those unacquainted.
Thank you for jessing that. That was necessary. This season that's on right now on Paramount Plus is so good. It's so good. When you have an entire season of all of the all-stars from all winners from RuPaul's Drag Race coming together and competing, and the way that they've structured this season, no one's going home episode to episode, you just get like it's just mainlining everything that drag is about every Friday, and it never stops being great. So if you've never watched it, you've always wondered what Drag Race as a show is about, or what drag culture today has become. I will put it that way, because it is its own thing now. Watch that season. Anyway, let me see that walk. So I've been spending a lot of time watching YouTube. We know that this is how all my stories start. And I've also been spending shockingly, the two of us happen to watch a lot of YouTube and get inspired by stuff. But the other thing that I've been doing is that I've been driving a lot. I have about an hour, a 2-hour drive that I have to make once a week to the other side of town. And so I've been listening to a lot of music. And as a result now, getting reacquainted with like what I actually like in music and not necessarily having music always be my background, I've been becoming increasingly obsessed with the prevalence of song twins, with two songs that bear some resemblance. And I'm sitting there, hands on the steering wheel, trying to figure out, did they have the same producer? Did they have the same songwriter? Like, is it just like a trend thing that these two songs sound so crazy familiar? Like, what is going on there? And so, the other thing is that I have just a passing fascination with movie twins, which is totally a thing, has happened in movies since the 20s, really. Like, you see classic films coming out that are essentially the same movie, but were released by competing studios at the same time. So my little pony, my little brain is driving around all afternoon trying to figure out what to make of this. And I suppose my question for you, dear friend, is what do we make of the existence of song twins and movie twins today?
I think it's really interesting to think about it in terms of like, is there a thing in the zeitgeist that makes a thing prevalent, or is it like something more banal that is just like a product of the machinations of the industries? Like, I do think about that a lot. Like, why did like Armageddon and what was the other one with Morgan Freeman?
Deep Impact. Oh, yes.
Deep Impact. Yeah, like,
yes.
Was it that like Armageddon was getting shopped around and the other studio didn't get the script, and so they're like, cool, we'll just make Deep Impact? Because there are instances where the twins are like identical twins insofar as they're like both good or both bad or whatever. And then there are instances where they're like fraternal twins and you have like the hot twin and the ugly twin, And I feel like what might separate those instances is when it is like a zeitgeist thing versus a like machinations of the industry thing. Like, you assume if you're going to copycat, it's probably not going to be good, or unless you get lucky. But I was telling you beforehand, there, like, I see this, I don't know if it's just the moment we're in, but like, since I've had a kid and the movies that my daughter likes, there are a lot of twins. Like, there are two sets of movie twins that she likes, both of the twins a lot, and I actually like them. So Big Hero 6 and Next Gen are about like big friendly robots that are like fighting to do good and like teaching a troubled kid to like feel better and like find themselves or whatever. And then there was Ron's Gone Wrong and Mitchell's vs. the Machines, which are like, sort of like insidious corporation doing a thing, but like an unexpected hapless kid or family saves the day from like insidious corp doing like a dumb thing and making everything bad, like down to the point where in like one of them. Also, this was a problem I had with Mitchell's vs. Machine, movie I genuinely like, was that they made like the shitty Mark Zuckerberg character black. I was like, why? Yeah. Like, don't put that on.
Yeah.
Like,
they didn't need to do that.
It could have just been, like make him like a weird white dude. Like, what? You didn't need to get representation by putting like the hapless nerd, make him black,
Yes. So two quick things. One is that Mitchell's versus the Machines is fantastic. Like, as someone without kids that had friends with kids telling me like that is a Saturday night movie for you, and me resisting for so long, when I did finally watch it and was legitimately laughing out loud, I was very happy for its existence. That's a
Aaron, how does a moose say I love you?
It's just so good. It's really good. I'm going to watch it again. They did a good job. And then the other thing is that, like, I do want to, I've been throwing around movie twins and song twins like it's a thing, and you can probably figure out from exactly what Joey just described what I'm talking about. Because, like, no, I'm not talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. And no, I'm not just talking about two, like, scripts that are, like, the exact same. It's kind of like a manifestation of movie marketing where, like, everything about the way the movie is marketed and the structure of the story, like the central idea and the way it plays out, are mirrored, and they come out at the same time. That's like an important part about it, because like it's one thing to have a movie that's like, came out 10 years ago, and then another very, very similar movie comes out 10 years later. But this is the Armageddon versus Deep Impact example. This is Volcano versus Dante's Peak being released by studios at the same time. And another kids one, which is really weird, is like
No Strings Attached and Friends with Benefits.
Yes. This is another really, really good one. Like,
what was it? Finding Nemo and what?
Finding Nemo and Reef. If you look up the like cover art from those two movies, even the typeface of Finding Nemo was jacked by Reef to try to pretend that it's the same movie. Like, and so we'll post a video in the show notes that starts to break down the history of this, because in film, what's interesting is that many times this is done for very, very explicit and like lazy marketing reasons of like two rival studios know that scripts are in development that are the same, and they are literally just trying to release it first because they know it's going to win. The formula works. Like, they've greenlit it, and if they can get it out a month earlier, fine. They win the slightly larger piece of the pie, and they're both incentivized for in different ways. Like, maybe it's filling a different gap within their portfolio. And also sometimes you get the second best thing. You get people who are just like, especially with kids movies, the parents are like, I just want to go and like do something with the kid. Oh yeah, here's that movie that has the blue and the fish in it. Like, cool, we'll go see it. And like, whoops, we went to the wrong one. But like, this has been a thing for years, that like even movie posters would be mirrored to be very, very similar, so that you're trying to pull in people around the same story and the same idea. But the thing that's a little bit weird to me is that song twins, though they also happen, like there are songs that come out and they sound very, very similar. There's a different thing that's going on, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know if, like, an example.
I wanted an example because I was trying to think of a song twin, and you might say them, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that checks out. But I can't draw them up as easily as I can with movies.
Yes, there's like an obscure one. Oftentimes it's rooted in producers. So Rodney Jerkins produced it's an Ashanti song. How am I forgetting it in this moment? This is terrible. All right, I'm going to post it in the show notes. This is a great podcast. It's this Ashanti song that came out in 2003, came out at the same time as Take This Ring Off by Toni Braxton. And if you listen to the beat, it is almost...
Rock With You?
Yes. No. That's the original Ashanti song. No.
I'm just looking through her 2003 Breakup to Makeup.
This is going to be painful. I promise to do it in the show notes. Watch it not be Ashanti. That's what's going to end up happening. Oh, you know what? Maybe it's Maya. Okay, this is the worst example ever, and I'm going to keep us moving forward because I'm failing so bad right now. But this was a big thing. This is a big thing with super producers. So Rodney Jerkins is a super producer. You hear it a lot in Timbaland's music, where like you'll hear a sonic signature that he has, like the baby crying, like the like it's a very Timbaland accent to his songs, and then you'll hear like 3 songs, and you're like, that's basically the same song. It's not the same thing as like Under Pressure by David Bowie and Vanilla Ice, where it's like a sample or a remake that's been tweaked. It's like the same structure from 2 different artists is basically the same. And I like what I don't understand is like when that happens, usually one of those tracks becomes much more popular and the other one doesn't take off. But both are chasing a similar sound. Both are chasing kind of something similar in some ways that the movies are chasing, where it's like there is a certain vibe or a certain sound that's definitely a winner. And you've got one producer working with 2 different artists. One of them is likely going to take that sound and make it a thing, and the other one may not. I think other song twins, and this is why I bring it back to producers. Timbaland also did he did the Shock Value albums, Shock Value and Shock Value Volume 2, when he was producing songs by rap artists, but also producing songs by folk artists and pop artists. And you'd end up with everything sounding a little bit like Cry Me a River. Like everything was just basically another version of like a verse that was lost from Cry Me a River from Justin Timberlake by another artist. And don't get me wrong, I love Rodney Jerkins. I love Timbaland. They got me through college and most of my New York years, so good on you. But the thing is that music is more litigious, and this is my point. When it comes to any sort of sonic sounds coming together, sonic signatures that sound too familiar, that are from 2 distant artists or 2 distant producers, you're much more likely to see some sort of lawsuit come up saying, hey, wait a minute, that's mine. I did that. Or more accurately, you stole that from me. Like you took what I did and you used that as your own and you're profiting off of it yourself. How very dare you? And there's a lot more legal precedent for people trying to do and issue those lawsuits, but also a lot more legal precedent for them failing, because then you get into just origination arguments. Like, are you really going to argue like, I love that this week actually, this is going to happen. Hold on. 212. Who sings 212? Raps 212. Azealia Banks. There's my brain. Azealia Banks came out this week and was saying Beyonce stole her sound because Beyonce has just released a house record this week, or a house song this week. And Azealia Banks brought house back with 212. Like, true. Not arguing that. But neither of them invented house. Neither of them. And even if you go back to the people that did invent house, they would go back and argue. Like, the argument then is like, well, the components of house came well before them, and actually those are the people that should get that attribution and should be earning the
in
money.
My Azealia Banks voice. Oh my God, the girls are fighting.
Yo.
It sounded nothing like Azealia Banks, but the girls are fighting.
And Azealia Banks is the most generous thing that I could say is that Azealia Banks is really problematic. Very problematic. Just deeply and confusingly problematic. So it's actually hilarious that she even threw this out there. But this idea of like, I think the argument in music is always based on attribution and is based on origination, whereas in film it's much more openly just like, we made the same movie because the scripts were being developed at the same time. We want the cash grab.
The thing that's interesting in this case between twins is that because music is so mathematical, It's and like quantifiable, that you're able to have like a reduction of concepts in a way where you can sort of prove a point, right? Like, because movies are longer, they're not saying the same words, right? Like Deep Impact versus Armageddon is like, an asteroid came. It's like, you can't own asteroids, you know?
Right.
And so like the stories are different, but the concepts are the same. Like, it, you know, in that way, it's like, Don't Look Up is like Don't Look Up, then also a like copycat because it's about an asteroid, right? Like there's a looseness to literary structure that allows it to be like, it's not copying. We didn't say the same words, and there's different people, even if you're like, yeah, but like, yeah, and no. And so that's what that, you know, in the case of like, you know, Ron's Gone Wrong versus Mitchell's versus the Machines. It's like, these are different movies, but it's like same premise, similar lessons. Like, you know, the system got it wrong. We made androids and put them like, gave them the wrong intentions and centers, and we need to like be more human or whatever the message is exactly. But like, they're clearly like, you know, in this category of movie twins, and also they're not the same story. They're hitting different beats and jokes and characters. And so like, how and where can you draw the line in something that is like more even just like the length, right? Like a 2 minute and 47-second song is just like easier. There's less room to do more, so easier to demonstrate that something is derivative of another thing. You know what I mean?
And there's also, you've just opened my eyes to something else, which is that with film, even in front of the camera, you're going to have, unless like, obviously there are plenty of films that defy this, but you're going to have many people, you're going to have many characters in front of the camera, and each of those characters is going to be played by various actors, right? And like, each of those actors, great casting is not about acting alone, like acting ability alone. It's about what story that actor brings with their own personal background to that character that makes for a more interesting read of the text of the film itself. But that's like the entire cast. That's like tons and tons of characters. Even with Mitchell's versus the Machines, I haven't seen the other one, but like, you're talking about like at least 6 characters. And like, with music, yes, there are bands, and I do like, I can't ignore the fact that bands as a whole play a role, but like, there is very, very often one lead performer, whether that be the lead singer or the lead like musician. There's usually like a performer that's being put in the foreground, maybe a couple, maybe they're a duo, maybe it's Destiny's Child, whatever. Okay, email me, be mad at me. Oh, come at me, bro. That's what it was. And then there are also like the producers or producer teams that are behind it. And like, those are pretty much your people that you're playing with, or the like the players on the board. And like, it's just a smaller pool in a shorter amount of time. So like, you get to tell this story that like, oh, they stole this song because Beyoncé stole this song. Azealia Banks did it first. And it's like, can we talk about the Beyoncé machine? Because I guarantee there's a bigger machine around her than you, Azealia.
I mean, the weird part is like, to some of the videos that you shared in the past where you were going through like the deconstructor type of videos of different songs and things like that. There are 7 notes and like, and then there's just, I mean, like someone could tell me I'm wrong, and maybe I am, but there's just fewer permutations. There's fewer things to play with, which also makes it kind of tough in this like twin game, right? Where it's like, you're using like X power chord. Does that mean we're copying? Like, it was really interesting to see the, you know, what song was it that we had talked about where it was like a Taylor Swift song paired up with
geese or ducks in a Walmart,
like
because I like that.
No,
different thing.
It was like a Paramore song or something like that, where you're
Yes.
like, oh,
Olivia
I didn't
Rodrigo.
know.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Olivia Rodrigo
I'm
and Paramore.
and Paramore, right? Different.
Yeah, it's like they're all using like a similar chord progression and key change, and it's like, yeah, because like that chord sounds good. Like G exists, and like if you're gonna use G, like there are limits to the permutations of music, and which makes it suck that it's so litigious, because sampling and iterating is like what makes for good music. But then you have to be like, oh, did Azealia Banks use this key change when she was at the 212?
Well, there's so many things in here, right? There's one, Western music does root itself in 13 notes. Like, that's it. Like, but in other cultures, some of those half steps and some of those are not half steps, but quarter steps and eighth of a steps are like actually played as notes, and like we like the structure of Western music is built around those 13 notes, and then therefore we've locked ourselves into these really, really common chord progressions and these really, really common pleasing key changes. One of the things that comes up a lot in this sort of conversation is the Beach Boys, because when they wrote God Only Knows, music theorists just the song doesn't make sense. None of those key changes and chord progressions really follow any traditional Western structure. And they don't really follow many other structures that have been discussed either, because it's built on like 13 notes. That's built on those 13 notes. And that's one of the things that makes Brian Wilson such a genius, is that like it doesn't make sense, but it works. Like he broke something in music that also became popular music, which is like, that shouldn't be possible. So that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing too is that like, there is there's an emotional precision to music that probably does come with it, and I guess I am talking about pop music mostly, that is pretty like wrapped around or wrapped into the amount of time that you have for a track. That's pretty sharp and specific. There are complex songs. I'm not suggesting that music is not complex, but I think that just film being so many media forms together, like on top of each other, forces more complexity, and therefore keeps it from being as hard to exactly mirror or mimic what's going to happen. Like you have a score on top of what's happening on screen visually. And the other thing too, I'll give folks props. Like, even though it's popular to sue around these sorts of things, most music attorneys won't even take those sorts of cases, because it's so hard to prove origination that it's not worth taking the case on. It's almost impossible to win. So what's good is that like over time, because of sites like Bandcamp and because of all those places where you can get beats and actually create and promote your own music and pay for sampling, really like pay for samples, there's actually not as much successful litigation around song twinning as there had been even 10 years ago. So maybe we're going to start seeing album twins. Maybe we will start to, this might be my prognostication, that in the next 10 years, just give myself a nice broad window, that we'll see an album twin. Just one, keep the numbers low. But I don't know. I guess like we've interrogated their existence. I think the wrap-up corner here is this phenomena exists for various reasons, including legal,
the zeitgeist
precedent, the zeitgeist around content, the nature of media marketing in these two spaces and how it operates. But ultimately, the fun part is being able to play around with and compare these two things together, which might be some of the excitement around them to begin with. Did I just introduce a new idea in the wrap-up corner? Did I fail at? I think I did.
No, and let's just throw another German word in there, that even if they appear as though they're twins, the gestalt of both of those things can be unique, even if the sum of their parts feels twinny.
I don't know whether to say God bless you or please bring me more soup, but I like it both.
Can I make a side note as like why I love doing this with you, Aaron? Because I made a joke in an episode of, I don't know, a few weeks ago or something, like making a joke with Jess about like, oh, maybe we should talk about Baroque pop and the influence that Pet Sounds had on the emergence of this genre. And then you just introduced it today with like God Only Knows being like often pointed to as the origination of the genre. And you know, this is why we're friends, I guess.
I think this is one of the many reasons. This is a glimmer of our bond. Aw.
Jess is like, I don't want to talk about Baroque pop. Yeah.
I need you back, Jess, though. You and your ukulele power. Yes.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain Produzione.
Brought to you by Baroque Pop. If it's not Baroque, don't fix it. Come on, it's the dumbest joke so add to.
I wanted to make that joke because you were saying he broke music, and I was like, it's Baroque Pop when you were talking about how Brian Wilson broke it, and I was like, hold back. Maybe there'll be another chance. And you did it. You did exactly what I needed.
Yes.
With that, we'd like to thank our executive producer and suspiciously absent friend, Jess Vander.
We love you and miss you, Jess. We'd also like to thank sound engineer and my E-flat major, Alex Contel. Yeah.
We'd like to thank our program coordinator, manager extraordinaire, program extraordinaire. Let's go with that. Les Jacobs, because, you know, he has no twin. There can only be one. He ate the other one.
He did. Tasted good. Meatballs. We'd also like to thank Sarah Gilbert and Nora Mestridge, the production crew, who just, you know, they are the wind that will always be beneath my Bette Midler. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's just Bette Midler farts?
Yeah. I was going to say something about Hocus Pocus 2, but the moment is past now. It's past. Can't even.
And as always, sorry, Len.
Man.
So
special
wind
thanks.
Beneath my Bette Midler is my special thanks.
Yeah, I think that's my next t-shirt for sure. I do want to thank Bette Midler and Kathy Najimy and Sarah Jessica Parker for reprising their roles as the Sanderson sisters in Hocus Pocus 2, coming out September 30th on Disney+. I gave Paramount Plus a shout out earlier, so might as well give Disney Plus one here. That's basically what I'm just trying to balance stuff out. That's, you know, it feels right. Feels right.
I would like to thank Neil Stevenson because I've listened to a lot of his books, some multiple times in the past, but I've listened to Diamond Age, which is in the same universe as Snow Crash, but I never listened to Snow Crash, and I'm listening to it now, and it is like, if you ever decide to listen to it, you have to, it's helpful to know that he is both making fun of cyberpunk while writing a cyberpunk novel. So there's like this tongue-in-cheekness that's helpful to understand when you're listening to it. But it is, you know, I don't know, 8% in, 7% into the book. And it's like so prescient in like a really creepy way, like written, you know, 30 years ago. And it like kind of the nail on the head on a lot of like the internet world that, you know, we live in. Obviously the more absurd conceits of like the world aren't there, but I don't know. Neil Stevenson is so good.
Wow. I'm gonna check it out, and I'm gonna buttress your strong accolades with something that is absolutely just as highbrow. I need to give a special thanks to Carrie Underwood's new album, Rhinestones and Denim. I am deeply enjoying her desire to go back to an 80s synth sound, which is probably what inspired my Anita Baker moment at the beginning of the pod. But like, it's an interesting album. I both like it and dislike it for all the reasons that I both like and dislike Carrie Underwood. So thank you and keep them coming.
Rhinestones and Denim sounds like it's a caricature of itself.
The first track is 2 minutes and 26 seconds long, and it is, if you listen to it, it's confusing. It's delightful. It is confounding. I mean, just as a quick askance glance, the country music space is complicated, and as a very like erstwhile country music fan, like, I don't understand a lot of the politics and well, I do understand the politics, I should say. And like, I think that there's a lot of tiptoeing that artists have to do to say anything that is not what you would stereotypically expect from a country music artist. But I think that this album kind of came out as like a very obvious tiptoe in a lot of ways. Like sonically, in terms of lyrics, in terms of content. And that's why like my ears are happy. My brain is confused. It's just confused.
I'm just confused.
That was me channeling my niece.
I love you. I don't know how I feel about Carrie Underwood. I'm currently neutral, but maybe
Indeed.
Rhinestones and Denim could change my life. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Full of gratitude.
Yeah.
We love you. Bye.
Bye. Total Request Live is brought to you by Sprite. I will know which file it is.